Good afternoon and welcome to the group chat on the two-way platform where our ethos is peace, love, and understanding. And we would encourage you to practice what we're preaching in the comment section and anywhere else you're talking about what's going on. We invite you to contribute, to share your thoughts, and to weigh in on our show live by raising your hand through the platform. And we'll call on you and take your comments and questions. We look forward to that portion of the discussion every day we do this show. We do it once a week, although housekeeping, we're not going to be doing it next week. We'll be taking a week off for a variety of scheduling reasons, but we will be back the following week. So we'll be taking a little vacation, but then we'll get back with you next week. Our topic for today is kind of an open-ended conversation about what's going on in U.S. and American politics, but we want to begin with the shutdown because we've got some important looming deadlines. I think the SNAP benefits, that expiring, people not getting their checks relating to that had been a major topic of conversation and is motivating some desire to end the shutdown. Some Democrats, I think, getting now some tough questions from media, including from Jake Tapper, about whether they are, willing to continue this stand in order to, if it's resulting in that being taken away. And I see Nina shaking her head, and I am going to come to you first on this. Do you think
it's early
this is the beginning of the end for the Democrats in terms of the shutdown? Because now they're getting these pointed questions, and they're being put in a position to say, well, you got to pick one. You got to pick SNAP, or you got to pick the healthcare, the fight over the healthcare subsidies. What say you?
Robby, why is it, Robby, Emma, and Dan, why is it that the Democrats are being asked this question? Why isn't the Republicans being asked this question?
Because they're ready to vote to end the shutdown on the basis.
No. Hold on, Robby, because it's my understanding that there's some money in some reserves that the president could easily have dispatched out there. And if I were the president, I would dispatch those funds and then rub it in the Democrats' face. Okay? President Donald J. Trump, all powerful, all knowing, could do that. No, so I want to reframe this as to why the Republican Party that controls the White House, the Senate, and the Congress is going to allow SNAP benefits for millions. Is it about 42 million or so? Yeah. Millions of Americans.
Because Democrats won't vote for it. Because they won't vote for it.
The Republicans.
Dan, I saw some polling from Harry Enton, CNN yesterday that was approval among Republican base is up. Also approval for the administration up among independents. Do you think some ground is shifting and that's going to bring the Democrats to the table to eventually vote for exactly what the Republicans want them to vote for? That's what I predict. To put my cards on the table.
They're weak and feckless, but go ahead.
I think both parties are beginning to get a little uncomfortable, kind of broadly speaking. I think some of the GOP in the House are getting uncomfortable that they've been gone for a month. Like, it just doesn't look good. I think Josh Hawley introduced a SNAP bill. He's obviously a Republican from Missouri. I think, we've heard it on the morning meeting, kind of people pleading for SNAP, stop playing politics. Like, for the love of God, this is food for me and my family. I do think that there is kind of bipartisan agita that this has to end, but then it gets to the sequencing, which is, are you going to kind of try to put these in tandem, which the White House says no, or do you have a handshake agreement, which is hard for a lot of Democrats to trust the Trump White House, that we will reopen the government and, within a day or so or hours, you're going to put this healthcare bill on the table. And of course, Republicans are completely divided with like 5 different ideas on healthcare. So on some level, they have an incentive to not put that on the floor. If I were the Democrats, I'd open the government and then take that off the table and literally taunt them on healthcare. You have no plan. You guys are all fighting with each other, giving 5 different answers. We're unified. So.
What do you think, Emma Jo?
I think I have an opinion that's probably, I don't know. I have an opinion that's probably going to drive everybody insane.
Good.
All right. On that note,
except Robby.
I'm already insane.
I was going to say, I'm already on that road already.
So I think that these bills are often, and that's probably, that is the point. I know that this is the point. That these bills, these spending bills are always so huge so that we don't see and think about what's inside them and what they say.
They don't even read them when they vote for them.
But me, an idiot, have
Yeah.
been following the news this week and read that there are 40 million people being supported by food stamps.
Amazing.
This is 42. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it is amazing. Like this government shutdown is actually making me feel repulsed for perhaps the opposite reason of everybody else, which is we have so much we have so much spending. And it is so appalling to me as somebody who is trying to support a young family. And I know that there are many such cases. There are also millions of cases of that in this country, of middle class people trying to support their family. And this whole topic has brought to the front of my mind, which I try to always keep out of my awareness and out of my consciousness so I don't have a freaking aneurysm. But it has now brought to the front of my mind how much we spend and how many people I am supporting, apparently, along with my family. And I have become incensed by that. So I know and I care about the most vulnerable in our communities, and of course, and I am sensitive to that. And I think that this shutdown obviously affects them, and I'm sensitive to that. But it's also this drawn out debate has also made me think about, because of what we're debating, how much exorbitant spending we should do. And it has made me furious. That is the part that has made me furious, not the shutdown itself, but what are we talking about? We're talking about me supporting 40 million people, and that is making my brain hurt.
Yeah, I feel that. I mean, look, I think the amount of money our government spends, the amount of debt we're leaving to our children and grandchildren is a crisis, is a cataclysm.
Yes.
Now, if I was going to go through and start, I absolutely think we should cancel out serious amounts of government spending to fix that problem. Would low income or no income people getting some assistance from the state, would that be where I would start? Of course not. Of course that would not be where I start. There are so many categories of spending I would start with, including closing departments and truly getting rid of a lot of federal employees. But I wouldn't start with the welfare benefits. But on the other hand, that can be used as an emotionally blackmailing cudgel when it says, oh, you want to cut government spending, so you want to take away food from people who need it. I'm like, well, you can say that about anything. That we'll never cut anything if any time something is actually cut, there's some tears being shed over it. Like, this is a big problem that neither party sadly takes seriously. Because then you say, well, Republicans run up the debt. Of course they do. They're all hypocrites on this. And the Democrats don't seem to care as much about it at all. So
But
it
like,
doesn't ever get solved.
how is it that we're just talking about now? Like, I mean, this is like, when you think about it, actually, this is so crazy. 15%, it's about 15% of our country.
Yeah.
15% of our country is being subsidized, like is having their food paid for by the government. And I'm not necessarily shading those 15%.
Yeah.
But like,
Oh God.
that's what's going on. Either there's a problem with our society, or there's a problem with our economy, or there's a problem with the way things are calculated, or I don't know what's going on. But 15% of our country, 15% of the country, by the way, gets blown out if we don't have the government open.
Nina's going to say all of the above.
All the above, and Major, I'm about to explode, and I
I
understand,
knew it.
but reject where you're coming from. You're not the only one supporting these people. It is called a social contract. And there was a period of time growing up where my parents, who were working class people and still needed some help. It is a systemic failure that people who work 40 plus hours a week do not have a living wage. Why aren't we asking that question? Why are we subsidizing Walmart workers, for example? And I'm just using Walmart as an example. Walmart, a $1 billion corporation, has us, the taxpayers, subsidizing their workers through food relief, medical care relief, when if they paid their workers a living wage and provided health care, then we would not have to subsidize. Where's the blow up over what, the 40 billion, what is it, 20 billion or 40 billion that was just sent to Argentina? I quite frankly don't want my money being sent somewhere else while millions upon millions of Americans are vulnerable. And they didn't just get vulnerable, Joe. I really believe that what is happening right now is revealing the fistagers, because the same people who are vulnerable now are vulnerable even when they get those benefits. It's just that this makes them more vulnerable. So, Robby, to your point, both parties have definitely failed to deal with this challenge. We should care enough to say it is a systemic failure. And the last time I checked, both in the classroom as a college professor and somebody who has traveled this country twice for 2 presidential campaigns, been urban, suburban, and rural, I have yet to hear one person say, when I grow up, I want to be poor, I want to be dependent on government. Most people want to live a good life, and they work very hard to do so. So shame on us as a country.
But do we create
but
government
President,
dependency when we
there's $5 billion in the USDA that the president could use at any moment and deal with this SNAP benefits. And you know what? If I were him, I would use that money and hold and he could still hold the Democrats accountable for the shutdown. But
Well,
don't use the American people as a pawn. This is
Go ahead,
ridiculous.
Dan.
Well, I mean, the interesting thing politically now is, as the Republican Party has become a working class party, right? You have the Josh Hawleys of the world introducing a bill to provide SNAP money right now. And so the interesting thing is,
He's a rhino.
Right. It used to be that everyone pointed at Democrats and said, you're the welfare party and we're the party of the free market and, kind of do for yourself, the old stereotypes from the 80s and 90s. But now, I mean, it's fascinating because there are a lot of people on it. Those are, to Nina's point, those are our fellow Americans that are, going to bed right on the edge of hunger, if not, hungry. And look, we all roll our eyes about, or some of us roll our eyes about Mandani. You want to know why he's so popular with people? He's speaking to these issues across the board, whether it's housing or food or, public transportation. And so it will be fascinating to see coming out of this, because Emma, as upset as you are, I can't fathom Trump, because there's a lot of MAGA. I mean, you look at on a map where these benefits are, there are just as many people in the red states and in red rural areas. And healthcare, the Obama tax credits were a backdoor to help Republicans who didn't expand Medicaid. It's a total play for those southern states primarily that did not want to play ball with Obama, but they wanted the health care benefits.
Yeah,
I'm not, just to be clear, I'm not feeling these emotions at the thought of supporting Democrats.
No, I know. I'm just saying, like,
I'm just feeling like I sometimes I try not to think too much about the amount that we spend, and then this quibbling that's going on that is causing this issue in the first place is over such exorbitant numbers. And then based on that quibbling, all of these things are coming into the public conversation and are reminding me of what exactly is going on and what we're supporting. And listen, I don't disagree with Nina, and I'll say that 1,000 times, and that's like a big pillar of MAGA, is that our spending and our priorities on spending are so misplaced. Granted, the Argentina thing, I think that there was something deeper there than just like sending money around. Definitely, but whatever, in that vein, stuff like that.
That would make you upset though? Does that trick?
Is that true? Well, so I think that the Argentina thing,
and I love Milei, and I love Argentina, and I oppose it.
Oh, really? I think that was a play on hemispheric defense and making sure that Milei stayed the leader of Argentina, not a leftist.
Well, okay, right. So, but
not just for the sake of giving away money.
And I think that's great, but I wouldn't.
I mean, you can make the play about Ukraine. You can make it about all,
or about making sure Americans don't go hungry.
The DCCC is circulating polling today that shows 80% of Americans are against the Argentinian bailout. When if it's framed as, should that $20 billion be spent here or bailing out Argentina? And the interesting thing, Emma Joe, is you don't hear almost any congressional Republicans defending that bailout. The White House is, but it tells you, I bet you anything, you will see Democratic ads very soon that so-and-so is more comfortable with money to Argentina than to the United States.
That's fine, but I think we're just getting a little bit off-piste, and that would be quite rich for a Democrat after the last 3 years of the religion of Ukraine. to make that point. But
Great.
just
Then we'll muddy the waters.
okay.
That's
Don't
fair.
say the quiet part out loud, Dan.
Fair.
But but just this just I think there's a series of things that I'm getting frustrated about, and it's so frustrating to me that it actually makes me feel discombobulated and hard to, and I can't even articulate it clearly. But I think there's multiple things. The first thing is the amount of spending period is crazy, and the fact that this is going on for like a month now is driving me insane. It's like you don't have enough money. We need to find more money for you guys to open up and just do your jobs. Second of all, the priorities and what the money is being spent on, and how they obfuscate what they're spending on. And then third of all, the fact that we're in the position in the first place that 15% of our country can't buy their own food, and then that taxpayers who are moderate earners or whatever have to pay for that 15% to survive is horrific. And it's like, it reminds me of COVID when I remember my wife made this comment during COVID. She said, everyone thinks America is like a rich country, but this is kind of making me feel like it's like wearing like a fake Gucci belt. It's like you think that you live in a first world country, and then you see the amount of desperation and the incapacity of government to manage the country and manage the country's needs and manage the needs of the middle class. And it's a real rude awakening.
We actually can go to a community member question. Somebody has Dan wants to weigh in on the government shutdown. Dan, thanks for being with us. Unmute yourself and let us know what's on your mind.
Yeah, with the the threat of SNAP benefits being taken away at the same time, Trump and his family enriching themselves from the White House. From each of you, what's a 30-second ad that would be effective that Democrats could run that would, hone in on this message and, give them the political wins for 2026 and beyond?
Well, the most classic frame would be, we're fighting for you. He's focused on, like, we're focused on you. He's focused on himself. The challenge is on so many issues across the board, we're not focused on the substance. We're focused on Trump and, the ballroom and like all this other stuff. And so, Dan, that is the frustrating thing is you see the pieces of how you could make a political argument. But you got to move past some of the other stuff then.
Yeah, I would say to him, if I was a Democrat or if I was advising the Democrats, I would say, Trump says he cares about the working class. The Republican Party is the party of the working class, but it's working class people who, in some cases, require or need these benefits or benefit from having them in place. And Republicans are not actually on board with that. They're paying lip service to the working class. We actually care about it. We want to give you this X, Y, and Z. That's what I would probably do if I was a Democrat.
And then, since I'm really not into advising the Democrats, more pushing them, but you did make me think of something. I mean, the President Trump talks a lot about America first. Well, it's not very America first like to starve Americans, So hopefully the neoliberal Democrats will take that. Otherwise, Dano, the bigger problem is that both parties eat from the same trough. So ultimately, they're both hypocrites because there are only two classes in this country, as far as I'm concerned. It's the ruling class and the rest of us, the ruling class and the working class. And some people in the working class may enjoy the benefits of six figures or even seven, smaller seven figures, but it is still the ruling class and the rest of us. But yeah, Democrats, this is not President Donald J. Trump putting Americans first.
Ironically, I think Trump is currently at this moment doing the biggest thing that he can to help the situation and the amount of people that rely on the government and the amount of people that get hurt if there's a disagreement between fake party A and fake party B. And that is going to China to make a negotiation with Xi Jinping. That is our entire like manufacturing capacity has been exported to that country, and working class jobs would benefit if they were brought back.
But he's not doing anything so far to do that. I mean, that's the irony, right?
And
I wonder how long
negotiate with the leader of China.
But he didn't. The focus between he and Besant has stopped being reshoring and has turned into opening the Chinese markets, which is the opposite of like one of the things they agreed to was we were putting fees on Chinese ships into our ports to try to, make it more expensive to manufacture over there and then have to get it back here. We dropped the fees.
I mean, to defend the administration there, I think reshoring is a just total piped is never going to happen in a million years, and it's important to be honest with people. It's not happening. We can talk about policies that can mitigate the downsides of having done offshoring. We can have policies to mitigate the national security harms by being too reliant on China. We should find, in my view, trading partners, places to build factories that aren't China and aren't vulnerable to Chinese aggression. I'm all for that. But and I'm for, using strategic negotiation on trade. I'm glad Trump's talking to a lot of different countries. I just think the idea that I know some in the MAGA base have at a very high level and are convinced that Trump is going to do this, the idea that we'd have the kind of really crippling trade policies in place long enough to actually start building everything here again, and we would just deal with all of that pain. It's never going to happen.
That's not what the policy or the administration is aiming to do. What the administration is aiming to do is take certain manufacturing, like certain types of manufacturing and bring it back. They're not trying to have America, like the CCP actually put out this like disgusting propaganda ad that was supposed to be something, I guess, a knock on working class Americans or something, if you recall, where they had like factories, sweatshop factories of Americans like putting together like plastic toys. That isn't what the US is trying to do. That isn't what the Trump administration is trying to do. They're trying to bring back either critical goods like pharmaceuticals and chips, or they're trying to bring back like advanced manufacturing, which JD Vance was talking about, high level manufacturing that is not, again, sweatshops, that actually takes real skills, but it's still blue collar work. And they are doing that. They absolutely are. Walmart, actually, speaking of Walmart, just announced a huge deal that they're going to be producing pharmaceuticals in Tennessee. And the administration is absolutely still trying to do that.
Yeah,
trying to bring back plastic toys and backpacks.
But they've stopped talking. I mean, look, Emma Jo, I agree. It would be great. I think it's in our national security interest to decouple from China, right? It's hard to be so reliant on somebody who is your opponent, right? I mean, and I think they're looking to do something similar from us. But the challenge is you have companies are leaving China to go to Vietnam and other places. And we're cutting deals with those countries to say, don't go into China's sphere, come into ours. We'll lower the tariffs. We'll make it more hospitable for Americans to do business in your country to manufacture. Yeah. And if you listen to what Trump announced in terms of some of these investments that they're going to make in our country, again, it is not trying to put the barriers in place to make it expensive to do it over there and to incentivize to come here. They've stopped talking about it and they've stopped focusing on it. They just have. That's not a political hit. It's just a fact.
Well, I mean, I just don't know what kind of manufacturing you're talking about, because as far as I've seen, nobody has given up or stopped talking about getting certain manufacturing back into the United States and how good those jobs are.
There's been nothing on this trip once.
If somebody's able to do it, it's not going to happen immediately enough to help the vast majority of Americans who need it. So Emma Jo, for you, I'm glad that President Trump is over there having the conversation. That is a big, beautiful thing, to quote the president in his big, beautiful bill. And to Robby's point, though, I do believe that anybody, whether it's President Trump or President Biden or President next 2028, where he says
President Trump again, you mean?
Rewrite the rules. Ain't that some stuff? Whoa, Lord, don't even give me something.
I'm just kidding.
No. They said rewrite the rules. They said Trump 2028 rewrite the rules. But I'm put that. But they gonna let
in the next like 6 months of group chat, you'll be ready to vote for Trump for the third.
The irony of your guy saying Trump is going to run again in 2028, and I see this ad that says Trump 2028 rewrite the rules, but yet the president of the United States of America cannot find a way to maneuver around the do nothing Democrats, and he is going to let millions and millions of people go hungry. It's just blowing my mind. But back to the real point, Robby, I'm with you on any of these administrations need to tell the truth about where we are in manufacturing. It is a shame that this happened when it did happen, NAFTA, CAFTA, all of those things. I don't know who was the genius behind thinking that it was okay to allow manufacturing jobs to this degree leave our soil, but that's where we are.
Let's we got a lot of hands up. That's great. Let's go to Mitchell. I think Mitchell's going to be next. Community member Mitchell, thanks for being with us. Let us know what is on your mind.
Good afternoon. I wanted to game out part of the end of the shutdown in a slightly different way. So a lot of the talking about it has been based on all of the sort of prior rules and dispositions of the people that have been involved in shutdowns in the past, which is that it ends in some kind of a compromise. But one of the things that I think is a bit different about this one is that there are more Republicans in this administration and in Congress in general now that believe in the idea of total victory. Whereas in the past, the end goal has always been to reach some sort of beneficial to you compromise. The person who's sort of come up with the idea and is engaging in the whole ending of SNAP thing and not using the emergency is Russ Vought, who is one of those total victory advocates. And so what I worry about, just for the sake of a kind of continuation of normalcy to some degree, is that if there is not basically a concession on the Democrats' side where, okay, an emergency compromise has been, handled with Thune, before SNAP funds actually run out and you start getting all the talk about children starving, that there are enough people on the Republican side right now who would be advocating for nuking the filibuster and saying, President Trump and the Republicans refuse to allow children to starve because of the Democrats' selfishness or whatever. Nuke the filibuster and then just change the rules and do whatever the hell they want for the rest of until 2026.
You should be a consultant.
Thank you.
I mean, I don't think Republicans want to change the filibuster. Well, I don't know. Republican thinking these days is no need to really constrain ourselves. If I was in power, I would be working to constrain the government so that it doesn't harm me in the future. But that's kind of antithetical to where the Republican Party is right now. Even so, they seem unwilling to change the filibuster because that's going to get applied to them in the future. So I don't know. Anybody have thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean,
Dems wouldn't change it. I wanted them to change it.
I mean, I actually would change it because I actually think there's something to be said for like pass your bills, then let the public judge if they're good or bad, and have things move as opposed to like the constant, well, we would do it, but for filibuster. I mean, the only
silly system. There's no way around it. It's absurd. It makes no sense.
Right, and it was not part of the original thing. Like It was invented, in 100 years ago, the filibuster. But the other thing I would just add is you keep saying, why don't Democrats fold? I will say this in the defense of my party. There is no poll that blames the Democrats for this. There are polls that are tied or Democrats are favored by 2 or 3 points. But I mean, Nina said it earlier. Why Republicans are, at least so far, in the optics game of who's to blame, Republicans are not faring well. They're just not. So that both sides, I think, are getting uncomfortable. The longer this goes, they both look bad. And as the party that was already bad, you're coming down with us.
Meanwhile, people starve.
Yep.
And Russ Rogers, I gotta say, he's on here right now. Russ, you cracking me up. I just want to say that. But a point, Dan, that Russ is adding to, maybe it's time to get rid of the Jim Crow traditions like the filibuster. So Russ, you took the words right out of my mouth in terms of the quick preview of why the filibuster was created in the first place, was to stop Black liberation. And I will not be putting that in the parking lot today.
We have more community members. I think Rex is up next. Feel free to unmute yourself and let us know what's on your mind.
Nina has a good point. Trump should come back into town. And today is the 30th. We still have the 31st. So he could swoop back into town this afternoon. I guess he gets in at 3 o'clock your time or whatever. and, have a consultation with his group and come out tomorrow and say, yeah, we're going to release these funds, see what the Democrats have done. They're the ones that, were starving your kids. I'm going to feed the kids.
Tell me, Rex.
That's a very good ploy, Nina. It really
I
is.
would do it, Rex, if I were president. I mean, I would do it.
And I don't agree with that as far as I don't like Trump doing that, and I'm a 3-time Trump voter.
Sure.
But then again, the Democrats are so disgusting in this thing that they're trying to protect Obamacare, which originally, when it was brought out, the Republicans says this won't work. It's going to ruin health care, and it has. And so, I'm not and I was a lifelong Democrat until this year.
Well, Rex, what is it about?
I've just seen enough of what the Democrats do that I finally, I could vote any way I wanted to vote. But this year I figured I needed to change my affiliation. But yeah, I don't necessarily agree with doing it that way, but that is, Nina brought up a good point. That might be a way to do it. Blame the Democrats and cut the money loose tomorrow.
And I don't agree, Rex. I don't agree with what the president is doing here. I think you do understand that, but I'm saying as a strategy, since the Republicans are blaming this on the Democrats, he could be magnanimous.
Oh yeah,
that $5 billion, I got it, and I'm gonna release it. And these Democrats, like what you just said, trying to starve your kids, and I'm gonna feed them. I mean, that would be, you talk about pulling out the Trump card, so to speak. That would be for real.
Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think as this goes on, the Democrats are faring worse and worse in terms of how.
Why, Robby? Why? Dan just gave stats. Why are you blaming this on?
There's no data to back that up. There's none.
Zero.
We've gone from like 20-point margins to 5 to 10. So you could argue the trend lines in the long run. But I mean, look, here's the other thing that this has done. Healthcare is now considered a top 5 issue in every single poll. That was not the case. So the party's focus on it is resonating with the public. So I do think when you think about 2026 and the midterms, this is, especially if they don't deal with this, this is going to be a huge issue. Again, we are unified. Republicans are split like a piece of wood, with a sledgehammer. I mean, they are all over the place. You have some who say we shouldn't touch it, let it die. It's Obama, it's the Democrats making. Well, that's insane because you own the whole entire government. You have others who say we should do something, right? Josh Hawley and Tom Cotton and people from states that have, oh, by the way, huge populations that rely on government support. And then you have like the other part that's like, is there a way to actually truly fix the system, something new? And Trump is basically somewhere between something new and extending because he knows politically it's where he should be.
Let's take a comment from Jill. Jill is next up. Are you with us still, Jill? Hey, please unmute and let us know what you're thinking.
Okay, thank you. So one of the things that I was thinking about is this thing about the people who are, and Nina pointed to this when she said there's the ruling class, and then there's all the other people. And so people are so out of touch with what it is to have food insecurity and what it is to not have enough to feed your family and the enormous stress that this is for people. I know people that have enormous stress about having enough food. And there was a project that a friend of mine did in Washington State, and this is like 20 years ago, where it was called Walk a Mile in My Shoes, where they had it was either state or United States Congress. I don't remember what other state, but what they had is they had legislatures agree to live 1 month on food stamps to see what that was like, just to see what it's like. Not that to have people understand what's happening in that person's world so that they can make policy from the perspective of understanding what it's like for people. And we are so out of touch with that. I mean, like I could probably think of a very few people that are making the decisions around this that have any clue what it's like to be in a situation where you have food insecurity. So that's one thing. So I wanted to say that. I mean, who knows? I'll put that thing out there. Maybe someone will take on that initiative again to have legislators start thinking this way, or maybe participate in that kind of initiative again. But that's one thing. And then the other thing is that there's this thing about the money that's set aside by that is in a reserve fund that's not being released for SNAP. And I read an article this morning about what the Trump administration said about that was they would not release that money. They would not release those funds. There's just too many obstacles, legal hurdles, all this stuff. And my first thought, I read part of the article. I couldn't even finish reading the article because what popped into my head is if the Trump administration can take a wrecking ball to the White House with all the enormous obstacles and things that I know there are in place, if they're willing to do that, they could do this.
Of course.
They could release that money.
Yeah,
And I don't believe that I think the shutdown's gonna come to an end before they release that money. But the mere fact that they could release that money, but there's no political will to do it because it's leverage. And how gross is that?
How gross is that? How cruel?
You know, actually, I find this point interesting because the way that they're doing that renovation is through private donations, right? And it's funny because Jill is actually, I think, maybe inadvertently, or I don't think she's coming to it from the angle that I am in the next second, but I think we're making the same point or have the same idea, which is, I agree. I think it's much more efficient to help your community, like by organizing locally, pooling private money, and helping the people around you. I think that first of all is much more fulfilling spiritually. I think that creates closer connections to your neighbors, and real relationships to your fellow Americans and to your land and your shared communities. And also you can give so much more with so much less. If you look, like, that was kind of right what we were talking about, and what was making me so angry with how much waste there is. Like, that has zero waste. You're pooling money together and helping the people around you. And I do believe that there is the will to do that, and the motivation to do that. As a conservative, that's like OG conservative principles is have the community help the immediate community keep this stuff local and go through real, like, private charity. And people will give. People do give. I mean, I am the first person to tithe the second I get my paychecks, no matter how tight it is or what's going on, because that's my values. It's my values as a Jew, that's my values as a conservative and as an American. And I think that people would do that. And guess what? It doesn't stop when Democrats and Republicans are having a disagreement. They're still giving. I'm still tithing.
I think her point wasn't that the money was, obviously the ballroom was privately financed. I think her point was Trump didn't care about the approval process and the things that you had to go through to do a renovation. He said, screw it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to, figuratively and literally, I'm going to bulldoze forward and do what I want to do. On immigration, rather than saying, here are all the hurdles, they said, go, we're going to do this. Sue us if you want to try to stop us. We're going to get something done. On this, it's my opinion that they don't want to do it because the more you release steam out of the valve, the more Democrats are going to dig in and say, okay, the military's paid, SNAP is paid, we're going to keep having this fight. The more pain you inflict, the more you hope the other side gets uncomfortable and caves.
I think it's too hard to build things in this country because of excessive zoning regulation and other things. And so I was delighted to see Trump able to just remove that, move quickly and actually build something. I wish we could have the ballroom effect for just like all of housing in America. I was also struck as we were listening to Jill and a few other people, and Emma Jo, I totally agree with your point about the role charity can play. That, you know, I was raised in I went to Catholic school, and that was like an important part of the Catholic education as well, and so on. And what always is, you know, kind of strange to me, if we're talking about food stamps on the, you know, the federal program, I mean, how much, if it's the same amount going to everyone, how much good a check for however much money it is does you in, you know, in rural Missouri versus in New York City or Washington D.C. is insane. How much, you know, how much cheaper it is, frankly. If it's the same amount of money, if it's not tied to what the cost of living is in the area, that's always seems suspect to me. I feel that way about like the national minimum wage policy too. Well, what could be a perfectly healthy wage in one area of the country is totally insufficient in another, which is why I think these things should be administered more on the local level anyway.
I agree with your point about that, but let's raise it to something. It's $7.25 right now. So absolutely, what could feed a family in Ohio, like a Cleveland, Ohio, or East Palestine, Ohio, certainly is not the same amount that could feed a family in New York, for example, or Los Angeles. You're right. So let's have the conversation and fix the system, but to not have the conversation nor fix the system and keep the federal minimum wage at $7.25, I think is untenable. And then don't even get us started about talking about the sub minimum wage that many of the servers in this country who serve our food, if you're blessed enough to be able to go to a restaurant, they make even less than that. So that is a problem. Emma Jo, to your point about philanthropy, all of that is good stuff, but it's not sufficient. It's significant, but not sufficient. I think what we're forgetting here is that the government dollars are our dollars. We've already paid into, so that $5 billion that's sitting there, that's our money, of contingency money within the USDA. So we done already paid for this stuff. So let's just go ahead and feed these people. Now, President Trump earlier this year, and I put this tweet out a day ago, and Joe, to your point, the Clean Food Bank is going ham in a good way.
Yeah.
To give people in our community, give more money. And one of the reasons is even before the SNAP crisis, President Trump cut over $1 million worth of food to the Cleveland Food Bank earlier this year, before the SNAP debacle. So the president making those kinds of cuts all across the country and then exacerbates it with this. People can give and give and give. We give through our tax dollars and we're given philanthropically, but it is not sufficient. Government's job. What about domestic tranquility? And there is nothing tranquil, in my opinion, about knowing that our government, that we could do something to lessen the pain of people who are already, as Jill pointed out, food insecure before this crisis. People who are receiving SNAP benefits are still food insecure. This just makes them more insecure.
I just don't see like the philanthropy in all of this tax spending. It's not helping people. It's just not helping people.
Well, it helps people a lot. I mean, look at the pain.
I think if you left, I mean, this is like, we're really getting back to like college Republican, you know, debate class. But, you know, I just think if you like, I don't know about you guys based on where you live, but like I get taxed like basically half my income, if not maybe like even like a little more in New York City. And if
Brought to you by Zoran Mamdani.
yeah, but honestly, like, and I max myself out as I can to charity. Like, I just think that that's good energy. Like, I just think that that's the best way to live, is to give as much as you possibly can. And like, I think that most Americans really do feel that way, let alone if there wasn't like the assumption that the government was going to cover your neighbors and stuff. And I just can't get away from that. I don't think that there's that much giving by the government. I think it's like the impression of help, but we could actually help each other much more effectively.
People are doing that. Do you know Pastor Jamal Bryant at a church in Georgia told his congregation, instead of giving us the donation, give it to your neighbor.
Yeah, or typically religious organizations.
I mean, but people are doing that, and this is not the first time.
Yeah, we're one of the most philanthropic countries in the world.
Totally.
We are.
Yeah, so it's not the first time, but it's significant, but not sufficient. Something is wrong with the system. I mean, do I happen to believe, I know or know what my group chat colleagues feel, that people who work 40 hours a week or more should make a living wage. Now, I know we can debate what that amount is, but if I work that much, a lot of people who are unhoused work and they still can't make ends meet. So it's systemic.
Yeah, but well, this is also kind of college Republican debate talking points, but I must point out that in my view, the effective minimum wage is just always zero. If the government requires a business to pay someone more than their labor is worth to that company, then they don't hire them and their wage is zero. So I'm actually, paradoxically, I am more in support of government just writing checks to people, just giving money to people. I would rather have that system of assistance than a system where the government tells private employers what the right price they should set on people's labor is. The government isn't very good at setting the prices or figuring those things out because Walmart has a history of supporting higher minimum wage because that clears out their competitors very effectively, the mom and pop stores that can't afford to pay employees that amount of money. So I would, of all the schemes for raising the standard of living people, I would rather not do that and just give welfare. But, to what Emma Jo was saying, we're taxed at a rate of 40%, 50%. I would love for if the 40% of my paycheck is going to needy or starving families. I don't know where it's going. I guess it's going to insurance companies or something, and it's going to the Defense Department. It's not going, if it's not going to them, but you can't tax me more. You can't take like 2/3 of my income. You just can't do that to people. You can't do it to me. You can't do it to any other Americans. So you got to find a way for the 40% of my income that's already going to the government to make more efficient use of that for needy people. Because sorry, I won't give you any more. I'll vote against it every time.
I think everyone on this Zoom knows the drivers of the debt and deficit and the spending are three things. It's defense, Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. And you're going to have to ultimately, nipping around the edges on stuff like SNAP or, the Kennedy Center, it's super small potatoes compared to the real drivers. And I mean, look, Robby, I'm with you. At some point, you can't keep raising taxes, but don't think that we should raise them anymore. But these are going to be the conversations that I think as a country, we're going to have some more in 2026 and 2028.
Let's get another community member. Doug is up next. Doug, why don't you come to the front of the classroom, this college debate club we're having, and let us know what's on your mind.
Hello, good afternoon. I want to talk about healthcare. It's obvious Republicans don't have a replacement for ACA. They've been talking about it for 15 years, but come up with nothing. I think it's also equally obvious that ACA is not working as intended. So my question is, let me give a little background. Is there any prospect for a truly bipartisan solution? I mean, Nixon proposed a national health care plan when he was elected president. That went nowhere. Hillary Clinton in 1993 tried to propose something and it collapsed under its own weight. Other bipartisan efforts on other things, such as immigration reform or system goals, have failed too. But does any of you see any progress, any prospect for doing something on a bipartisan basis that would truly try to solve this crisis in this country?
Yeah, I do. And I think the reason is elected officials respond to marketplace incentives. And when you have stories about premiums going up 100, 150%, this, blue areas, red areas, you have a problem. You have a crisis. And if somebody can come up with something, a family member is very involved in this industry, and I can tell you the biggest driver of cost for health insurance is not medical service, it's drugs. It has 3 times the growth rate of medical services. It's because people are taking more of them than there are more things available now. And so the pressure on health companies is over drugs.
And they're advertised. So if you didn't know you had Crohn's disease, if you didn't know what it was, you might say, maybe I do, and I should have this $50,000 a year medicine, because we charge more in this country than most any other country in the civilized world. So pharmaceuticals say they can turn money into R&D and invest in new products. I mean, I get that to some extent. But we advertise it. Only one other country allows advertising of pharmaceuticals, and that's New Zealand. You don't find it in Canada, you don't find it in the UK, but you do find it in the US. And every other drug ad on the TV is for a drug ad. You don't see penicillin advertised because there's no money in it. You see expensive, rare diseases stuff advertised, and that people wrote the doctors say, I need this. Okay, let me write a script for it. Get somebody to pay for it.
Yeah, I mean, on the pharmaceutical advertising, but we also, unlike virtually every other country on the planet, have like very strong and ironclad protections for free speech. And I don't know how you get around the problem of it being, on some level, advertising is speech. It just is. So I don't know how we could not have a system. The Supreme Court has allowed some tweaking of that, where there has to be a lot of disclosures in advertisements relating to pharmaceuticals and so on. But I think we're just going to have them for that reason.
We also have some of the world's leading innovation.
What about my beloved cigarettes? The speech of cigarette companies has been curbed.
Yeah, I don't know how you feel about that, Emma Jo. I'm not in love with that. I'm pretty principled on speech. If it was up to me, if I was on the Supreme Court, I'd say, yeah, they can't make the cigarette company advise people buying the product that it can be harmful for you. But we decided that one was okay.
This is where MAGA and libertarians depart.
Yeah.
We lose each other, because I think that first of all, we do it. It's not like this would be a new ground that we'd be breaking in speech law or something. And yeah, I believe in using the government to incentivize certain behavior and dissuade other behavior. I happen to believe that cigarette use, maybe we could reconsider how much we dissuade it. I think it made me very productive. But with things that we decide we don't want people to do, or we do want people to do, we use the government to incentivize behavior all the time.
Sure.
I have a really hard issue, a big issue with that when it's a harm to yourself. Predominantly, that's when my real libertarian side kicks in, when it's like the government has to protect you from, if you're the only one suffering the causes of your bad decisions. Like, it's different if it's kids, it's different if it's, obviously we want to prohibit, drunk driving fatalities, car crashes with other people. But if it's just, and this came up this week, by the way, as we haven't discussed this on the show, but the whole sports gambling thing, and how that being more legalized has incentivized bad and sometimes like totally self-destructive behavior, and I'm hearing a lot of talk about people now wanting to ban that. But again, I'm still like, but it hurts you.
But it existed before. All you've done is brought it into
right.
Where gambling is done through regulated outfits. They are catching stuff, right, because they see patterns that emerge.
Yeah, that's true.
It's yes. When it's through the mob and it's in the back alley that you are more susceptible to problems. And I don't think there's too much money. Some of these states are making hundreds of millions of dollars off of gambling. I just cannot see this getting banned. And the sports leagues are in bed with it. There's no way they're getting out.
And right, things that people do that's self-destructive to themselves rarely stops at them. I mean, cigarette smoking. So Emma Jo smokes, and I'm next to her with her secondhand smoke. Medical damage.
Aren't the harms of secondhand
that's exactly what I was thinking.
Like wildly exaggerated? I'm sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
I mean, I'm just using that as an example. I mean, even gambling. I mean, if this person has a family and they're gambling, they're addicted to something that is out there, and they have a propensity for addiction. And so now their kids can't eat, their family is in jeopardy. So it's rarely, just two examples of many we could use. I just believe it's rare instances where somebody's individual self-destruction does not land on somebody else at some point.
And not land on somebody else, it lands on all of society.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that is broadly true of literally everything, though. Then you could use that argument to, if I don't know, if I spray paint my house and make it really ugly on the exterior, then I might have lowered your property value some small bit. If you
Lord, man. I mean, Robby,
I wouldn't prohibit that,
not
right?
Quite the same as
well, I mean, the principle's the same.
Allowing vices to become easily accessible as a lifestyle or habit.
Well, everything we do affects others in a broad and abstract sense, is what I'm saying.
True that, to degrees, right? There's various degrees of impact. Can we agree with that?
Yeah.
But winding back to the original, we're doing the weave,
I don't know where we even
but now I'm
started today.
closing. The thing about the weave is that you look insane if you don't come back to the original point. Then you look like Joe Biden, according to the boss, according to the master. So I'm preventing us from looking like Joe Biden, coming back to the original point, which was about the certain things that we could do to
Healthcare.
potentially lower the cost of healthcare. And he had mentioned things like banning pharmaceutical ads because they was that Dan who said that, or my God,
No,
what was in my
no,
mind?
the gentleman Doug did.
Oh, Doug did. Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. I was like, wait, did Dan bring up? But anyway, yeah, and the fact is, like, we discussed this, I think, on the last show or the show before. We were talking about healthcare and socialized healthcare, universal healthcare, and whether it's feasible. I don't think it's feasible, but I think things like that actually are super productive in trying to at least taper down the cost, not necessarily maybe that specifically, but doing things at the edges where you're not completely overhauling the system, which, as we saw with Obamacare, ended up really upsetting people, but doing things where you can at least lower the cost of the biggest strains on the system or the biggest expenses that people incur.
I think we got time for one more community member. Andrew, is Andrew with us still? There you are. Good to see you. Let us know what you're thinking.
Oh no, good to see you guys. It's I feel like every single time it's I just love the two-way community, getting to see people from all parts of the country and so like hearing their experiences. So that's great. And I know that piggybacking on I guess everybody's vices with regards to like gambling. Like growing up in the UK, gambling is a big part of the culture. For a good thing and a bad thing. Gambling awareness is definitely there was a huge epidemic, I think, back home with people losing pretty much everything that they had. So like gambling the money that they didn't have. Might say that gambling being in the open, legalized could be a positive thing. When there's a way for you to continuously, it's an addiction, as they say. You can open up one, you can have one, have one account with one provider, another with another one, and then it's kind of like a growing thing, and then you realize that you are mounds in debt. And I feel like just the same thing with cigarettes. I'm a former smoker, so I know how much it costs to smoke, the negative side effects of that. The same thing with food. There has to be some kind of like preventative action that we need to take as a society to see ourselves as like in terms of our mental capacity, as well as our physical capacity, how we can treat ourselves better, just in a grand scheme of things. And I feel like we aren't incorporating those preventative measures, and we're just sort of like reacting all the time. So like with obesity to sort of like the lung disease, heart disease, how can we really sort of like come together and actually think of a better way to approach life so we can take care of ourselves mentally and physically? And I feel like we don't do that nowadays. It's all about just the bottom dollar. And that's me as a capitalist. I approve capitalism, but I feel like there has to be some way that we need to realign our way of thinking. I saw a news article the other day about, you go to, I think it was Korea, in McDonald's, they had one in America. So like one was, after about 2 months, the Korean one was all moldy, so like all like that. In America, nothing had happened to it. So there's something that we're doing, that we're ingesting into our bodies and into our minds, that we need to reevaluate. And that's kind of like
Our legal system is in a good way is meant to apply the law always evenly to everyone, which is generally good. But I paradoxically think when it comes to vice prohibitions, I often find myself thinking, I kind of wish philosophically if then a law could, if we're going to like prohibit people who are horrifically, like, could we just prohibit people who have, or stop somehow people who are actually addicted to gambling from gambling? And then, because there are I feel no compunction to gamble whatsoever. The idea that I should be prohibited from like walking into a casino and gambling seems ludicrous to me, because it is not an unhealthy vice that I have whatsoever, and I don't see by what right should the government restrict me from doing it? But there are people I know who suffer for like I want to restrict those people, but that is kind of like alien to our legal system to have a law applied differently to different people.
I find that this, like, like I agree, Robbie, but I come to it from a different place. Like, I am an addict myself, and I've grown up with addicts, and my family's full of them. And I do think that on the one hand, we have certain cultural things and lifestyle things that probably lead people toward addiction at a higher rate. Although, I mean, you do see addiction everywhere, you really do, in every culture. But also, I think addiction is, as to Robbie's point, but again, like from a different place, like it's such a personal battle. Every addiction and every person's addiction is such a personal thing. And like, I remember like how many times my mom has begged me to quit smoking over the years. Thank God I'm actually doing it now. But over the years, I mean, I've been smoking for 17 years, and my whole like time, my mom would beg me, and I love her. But I would always like, I can't do it for you. I can't do it for you. It has to be between like me and me. At the end of the day, it's me and the cigarette. Or at the end of the day, it's me and the slot machine. I mean, I don't have that problem, but whatever. It's you and the substance. And that's gonna be the last, like that's it. Nobody can beg you to, nobody can help you, nobody can take it away from you. If anyone has ever dealt with addiction or loved somebody with an addiction, you cannot take the substance away. They'll find it. They'll find a way to get it. So as much as like I do feel like, yeah, like there's probably a cultural thing we can do or a community thing we can do, and definitely there is with regard to health. With addiction, like that, like everybody has like something, and everybody has their key that will get them out of addiction. I don't know how anybody else could tell them what that key is though, or give that key to them. It's your own like journey.
We're out of time. We got to leave it there. Great conversation. I'd love to revisit actually for a future episode of our show. It's a really fascinating one. Reminder to everybody that we will be off next week, but the group chat will be back the week after that, and we hope to see you there for more fantastic conversation. Thank you guys so much, guys. Dan Turrentine, Emma Jo Morris, Nina Turner, and I'm Robby Soave. See you later.